In the last few days, we've seen Turkey rise. We've seen them go out in the streets and protest against Recep Tayyip Erdogan because he had decided to throw his competition to jail. Alright, so I'm gonna flip it and ask you, what do you think is gonna happen in Turkey now? And the other question I have for you, is that a skill that you would want to have? If so, I have a suggestion for you. This is exactly what we do in the course I have, Understanding Humanity. So hurry and sign up, and I look forward to seeing you in my course. All right. Let's talk about Turkey. About a year ago, I made a video called, Is Turkey Gonna Be the Next Iran? And here's the summary of that video. Yes and no. In that video, I clearly made it sound like yes, but I want to add something to it. There is a big difference that I did not talk about between what is Iran now and what Turkey might be. And that is the type of delusion the grand leader is suffering from. The cult that took over Iran is a death cult. They believe in the end of days, meaning they're suicidal in nature. And if you even know anything about Shia Islam, you would notice they like beating each other. Themselves, to be honest, not each other, I guess each other as well, but they like beating themselves and punishing themselves. And there is this glorification of self-sacrifice and the sacrifice of others. So in their minds, they would be ready to sacrifice whatever is needed for their version of Islam, which is very doomsday oriented. The Turkish version of Islam was not, first of all, it's not as authentic as the Arab version of Islam. If you ask me personally, the Turks might disagree, but you guys don't speak Arabic, so you can't even read the Quran. So anyway, making fun aside, it's not that it's not extreme, it is. But the version of glory, I think, Recep Tayyip Erdogan has in his mind is more Ottoman Empire style. And the Ottoman Empire was a little bit more practical and not that much of death cult, let's bring Earth to its end mindset that Iran has. This is the kind of mindset that took over Iran. This is why they are acting in a way that look so out there. Like, think about it. They took over, what did they do? They took over the embassy, the American embassy in Tehran, and took the people there hostage. That's completely crazy, right? Erdogan, if you actually follow what he does, he took a more gradual and less, let's just go out there 100% approach, right? So trying to avoid sanctions as much as possible, kind of listening to the international community, being more in tune, cooperating more with the West, saying things like how they are the protectors of the EU, which is a little bit different from the death to Israel, death to America chanting that you hear every day in the mornings in school and basically every opportunity they get that you get in Iran. So those are different cults. But why did I not mention that or emphasize that in my thoughts about where Turkey is going? Basically because as an Israeli, an area that used to be under the Ottoman Empire, and considering the many genocides the Ottoman Empire had committed, I'll be honest with you, there ain't that much difference. But for people outside of Israel, and maybe even outside of the Middle East, your perspective might be different, and your approach might be different, because it might matter more for you moving forward whether it is a death cult or an Ottoman caliphate kind of delusion that is ruling the country that wants to be part of the EU. To understand what would be the impact of what is going on in Turkey and how can Turkey get itself out of the situation it's in, if at all, there are several questions you have to ask yourselves that are also beyond the what kind of delusion the supreme leader is suffering from, which is important, don't get me wrong. You know the saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, maybe don't say anything. So this is kind of the approach I have, because I'm not optimistic, I'm gonna be honest with you. And not because I don't believe in the Turkish people. Okay, maybe because I don't believe in them. And the way Recep Tayyip Erdogan had been managing the affairs in Turkey, it's not only that he wants to go back to the Ottoman Empire at its glory by expanding, and he does whatever he can to do so. Ironically enough, and I don't know if he is aware of it, he also brings back the economic situation that the Ottoman Empire had, which was called, for the very longest time until it collapsed, the sick man of Europe. And I also noticed, for example, AP didn't say anything about it. I also think he had decided to not say anything because he has probably the same mindset as I do. I'm not very optimistic, even though I've made a promise to my friend to come and dance in Turkey and visit. Once they get rid of Erdogan, that was the deal. He said, yeah, we're gonna get rid of him. And I said, okay, the moment it happens, I'm gonna come and we're gonna go party.
So in Turkey, there are some really, really wild, massive protests going on right now, which is very powerful. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Nevertheless, I would believe that if the next elections come up, Erdogan would probably win again, because Turks are stupid.
Do I think I'm gonna go party in Turkey? I hope so. There is a place and room for optimism. It's just that I think the path there would be a lot harder than some might think. I actually think that in a certain way, in certain aspects, their situation is even more complicated than Iran's. It's a weird statement to make, I know, but it's just a little bit more complicated, because I feel like their situation would just leave them in a limbo of poverty for a very long time. And the only way that that would stop is if we start fighting Islam as an ideology globally. All right, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and see you later. Wait, okay, fine. If you're still here, I'm gonna give you an example of questions you can ask yourself. So the first question I would ask is, who got the power? And when I say power, I mean the arms. Who goes to the military? Who goes to the police? Second, the judiciary. Who is controlling the judiciary? I think a lot of us are very much aware that the judiciary has a lot of power, and we are seeing it in Israel, we're seeing it in the United States, we're seeing it in the United Kingdom. What kind of ideology do they tend to promote and support? Third question, how poor can a country be without being too poor? What made Syria, for example, different than another country? And in general, why the Arab countries who had experienced the Arab Spring, the protests there were a lot more severe? Well, I can tell you, for example, in Syria, they started going hungry. Being hungry makes you desperate. Being desperate means that you are willing to risk way more. what is the situation when it comes to food in Turkey? And those who are in tune with the world might ask themselves, wait, but China and Russia, they starved their own population and they still had the communist regime going. It didn't make them collapse. Well, you know what? Instead of answering that, I'm going to ask you, what is the difference